Hey guys, Scott Russell, Football Scoop. Very much appreciate everybody joining us for this clinic this afternoon. Football Scoop's been around 21 years, and we pride ourselves in trying to help the coaching profession. So, with everybody shut down, this is a great opportunity to do a little learning learning and sharing amongst everybody. Doug Samuels, who's our national content manager, also high school head football coach up in the great state of Michigan, has been taking the lead on this for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug and takes away, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Like Scott said, I'll kind of be the host through these next few weeks. Probably is what we're all facing. But we're really excited to get this thing going, give coaches an opportunity and a platform to share some ideas and really to connect with one another during this time that's so difficult for so many people. But a few reminders before we get started. To ask a question, type it in the chat. We'll make note of it so we can bring it up at the end of the presentation for Coach Liotta. I'll be taking some notes myself. I'll make those available for the article here at the end that we'll push out. And if you're not able to join live, you'll be able to find the article afterwards. We got a tab up at the top for clinic. So, but with that, we're really excited, and I know this is one that I've been really excited about. I've had this one circled since we lined them up. But Burrell High School head coach Shawn Liotta is going to talk some pass game stuff. So, Shawn, you want to take it away? Share your screen, and
yeah,
where's yours, man?
All right, get fired up. I hope everybody can see that now. Is that up there for everyone?
Yep, looks good.
All right, perfect. All right, again, I really want to thank Doug and Scott and Football Scoop for the opportunity to come on and represent our football program here at Burrell High School. Again, my name is Shawn Liotta. I'm the head football coach there. Entering my third year there, but I've been coaching for 22 years now, high school, college, arena league level. So, been involved in it, quite some time, and certainly any idea I have, I've stolen from somewhere else. So, love to be able to, hopefully give some guys some ideas that they can use with their program. And we're a 3A school in Pennsylvania, which is right around the midpoint in terms of classification-wise number of kids. So I've spent a lot of my career at the mid-sized to small school level. Have spent time at the big school level as well. So I think I do have, some different experience, I think, that really, can kind of relate to whatever type of program you're in. I do want to share my contact information with you real quick. You feel free to take that down. If there's anything I can ever do for you, questions that you have, please feel free to, reach out to me, whether it's on Twitter or email. Be glad to answer any questions that you have. Doug did say I could do this, at the end, but the slide is in here. I did recently have a book that came out, last month. It's called No Huddle, No Mercy, a complete guide to installing the no huddle offense. If you're interested in that, you can get it at nohuddlenomercy.com. It's been very popular with, college coaches, high school coaches. Really have been blessed to get a lot of really good feedback on this book. John Jenkins, the old head coach at the University of Houston, a friend of mine, wrote a lengthy, intro and foreword to the book that I think you'll enjoy as well. So if you are interested in that, please go to that website and check the book out. I think it'll be good, for your program. But I'm going to talk today about one of our choice routes, and this is a route, and I'm kind of going to get into, how we kind of moved into this from maybe some things that we did in the past. But in our offense, we don't run a lot of plays. We try to go really, really fast. We try to set a really fast tempo. We try to also give you some multiple formations. So we'll give you a lot of motions, give you a lot of shifts, give you a lot of gadgety type things that you have to try to also prepare for and basically waste defensive time not practicing against the core plays that we run. Because, as I said, we don't have a lot of plays. But what we try to do with those plays is have answers within the plays. So in the passing game, that would be in the form of multiple adjusting routes, where you hear people talk about the run and shoot, things of that nature. So essentially, these are routes where guys are going to adjust post snap. So in our offense, we have multiple adjusting routes, and we also have locked routes. So a locked route would be a route that's staying on. There's not an adjustment to it. You know, if it's a slant, it's a slant. If it's a hitch, it's a hitch. You know, shallow cross, whatever it may be. You know, those are kept on. So I just want to talk about some of the different ones we have in our offense that are multiple adjusting. And again, this is a major portion of our passing attack. I'm only going to talk about really one or two in really good detail here today. But we have quick choices. We have a seam route that's multiple adjusting. It comes from the back side of the play. So if we had our seam route, we would have a locked route on the front side, and the seam route would be part of the backside deal. We have deep choices, outside choices, inside choices, and also some slot choices. So, you know, we have some different parts of our package that involve multiple adjusting patterns. This particular route that I'm going to show you, this outside choice, we were 48 of 95 in the 2019 season. You look at that and say, well, that's a little bit of a low completion percentage. When you look at this play, a lot of this are vertical shots at times. So that's naturally going to draw that completion percentage down a little bit because we're forcing the ball down the field. As you can see on this play, we had 1,066 yards and 13 touchdowns on this play call alone last year. 22.2 per completion and 11.22 per attempt. So it was a major, major part of our offensive attack. Now, some of the advantages of it, and I want you to think, as you look at this presentation I'm giving you, I'm going to show you game film. I'm going to show you diagrams. I'm going to show you practice cut-ups of how we drill it. So don't think these intro slides are just kind of giving you the foundation of it, but I'm going to get into some really good stuff for you here, you know, on this concept. The reason that I like it, this particular play, it allows us to isolate and attack the worst player in their secondary. So for me as a high school football coach, I don't attack entire defensive units, and you know, I used to. But, you know, I've come to the realization of, you know, how high school football is played. We want to attack your worst player at the first level in the run game, the second level in the run game, and in the RPO deal, and some of our passing game. And then at your third level, we want to find your worst guy and try to go after him, you know, with our passing attack. And this play is good against man or zone, and your players will believe the defense is always wrong. So they're always going to believe that they're open. They're always going to believe they have a chance to get the football on this deal. If you ask our players, you know, what play they want to run, or receivers and quarterbacks, I guarantee you this is going to be a play call, you know, that they select. I also think it's good. It can be run from multiple formations. So if you're a wing T team, if you're whatever type of team, I think you can take this play concept, and if you rep it properly, you can make it a part of your offense. It really can be implemented into any offense. But what I will tell you is an asterisk. It takes a lot of time and reps. This is an expensive play, all right? I talked about we don't run a lot of plays, but we try to get really, really good at the plays we do run. So I would, you know, just you know, caution you, this is an expensive play concept, okay? Other advantages of it. It allows you to isolate and move your best wide receiver around. So, you know, what I mean by that, you know, it allows you to, if you have one kid, you know, that's really, really good, you know, I can put him out wide and run him on an outside choice. I can bring him into the slot. I can run him on a slot choice. It gives me a lot of freedom to try to get that kid into better matchups. And, you know, it's really good if you have just that one guy, but it's even better if you have a few. Like, so to give you an example on this particular play, we're a really big tempo team. So if we're running this play into our boundary, into our sideline, and say we call this and our guy runs, he has a takeoff, the read takes him vertical, and we just overthrow it, we will put another receiver from the sideline. We'll substitute him into the game right now, and we're going to go snap the ball and maybe run that same play again. You know, and then maybe on third down, if it was incomplete, we do it again. By that time, that defensive back is gassed. All right. You know, so we have done that on multiple occasions where we've really, you know, gassed the DBs, you know, by doing that and rotating different receivers into that spot. Another advantage is it's multiple formations. You know, pass protection, I'm not going to get a ton into the pass protection here because that's a whole clinic in and of itself. But we have 5-man, 6-man, 7-man, and 8-man we can do out of this. And it's a really easy read for your quarterback. The ball is going to come out, you know, right now because him and the receiver are really going to be grooved in on what you're looking at. And I'm going to show you the two different types of drops we have, in our offense with this deal. First drop is going to be a straight drop. All right, 3-step in the gun. You see the balls coming out, back foot hitch. Our other drop is our run and shoot drop. We're gonna move the launch point behind the inside leg of the tackle. All right, so you can see we do have different drops, different ways that we do move the launch point. Keys to success on this, again, as I said, reps, reps, reps. Your spacing, which I'm going to talk about, and knowing your quarterback, knowing what type of throws that he can make. And I think as a high school coach, as you're designing this deal, you really want to be cognizant of that. But I think any average arm quarterback can execute this play. First thing we're going to talk about when we actually talk about the play are alignments. And I'm going to put up diagrams and show you what I'm talking about. But the receiver who is actually called to be the choice, he's running the choice route from the outside. His alignment, if the ball is into the boundary, we really like this into the boundary. So if it's into the boundary, he wants to be about 4 to 5 yards from the sideline, all right? If the ball's in the right middle or the opposite hash, then we're going to get on the numbers or bottom of the numbers, depending on your quarterback's arm. But the alignment and the spacing is very important when you look at this deal. And what we ask him to do pre-snap, the receiver and the quarterback, because remember, they're going to both be on the same page with how they read and decide this. He's going to take a look at the deep safety to his side. In pre-snap, is he outside the hash? That's really all we concern, that receiver and the quarterback with. So pre-snap, is that defender, is there a safety lined up outside of the hash or on the hash? All right. The release of his route is speed to 10 yards as fast as possible. That's probably the most important thing. This decision on this route is going to be made at 10 yards. So we have to get to that point as quickly as we can. And we have to be very careful that we don't make that read until we hit 10 yards, because I'm going to show you some of the trap coverages and things that you'll get if you start to get really good at this play. And, a lot of guys will say, well, we run option routes. If we have a hitch on and it's a press corner, he's going to take off and run a fade. And, that's all well and good, but that's not really reading the defense, because, we see, pressed quarters and things like that where guys will be on the backside and they'll come up and press and they bail out of there. So we can't base that decision on the pre-snap in terms of where the cornerback is. All right, again, release is the fastest, speed to 10. Again, decisions made at 10, and here's the simple rule we give him. If he can touch the corner, he will run by him. So when he gets to 10, if he's within where he could reach out and touch him, we're going to try to run by him. If he can't touch him, we're going to stop the route immediately, and we're going to work back down the stem to the quarterback. Now, in a perfect world, when you see the clips, the ball is already coming out from the quarterback. So it should bring him right back down the stem for a nice completion. If we have something where we have what we call the area outside defender working across that route, then we'll adjust the stem. We could bend the stem inside, or we could bring the stem back down outside, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here. I'll show you some clips of it. So again, just an overview, and I'm going to show you some of the diagrams. The quarterback is a 3-step in the gun. The routes are the called choice, what we call an occupy route. Now, this occupy route doesn't know that he's not a primary guy. He believes he's going to get the football. But I can tell you this, in those snaps that I showed you that we ran at those 98 snaps, that ball went to the choice almost every single time. I think we had 4 scrambles, where we got out of that and broke into some secondary routes. But that ball, for the most part, is going to that choice. That's why I like it so much. And I'm going to talk about comparing it to the 4 verticals or the air raid 6 call of why I think this can be a little bit of a better play, particularly for a high school team, even a smaller roster team. Now, what we do on the backside of this route, we call them hangouts. They can run a screen. They can literally walk off the football. You may not like it when you see it. Some guys don't like it. You don't have to do that. You could run whatever kind of route you want on the backside. You could run a shake route. You could run him through the fence. you know, you can take him vertical, whatever you feel better doing. We just have our guys, they just walk off the ball. You'll see it on there. The reason we do it is we are, as I said, an extreme up-tempo team. So we're really trying to push the tempo, and it gives our guys who are playing both ways. A lot of my receivers, a lot of my guys are playing both ways. So it actually gives them a break during the play. So again, you don't have to like it. You don't have to do that. We do that. It works for us. Some guys don't like it, but it has been really good for us in terms of our tempo and, you know, giving our guys a little bit of break. So if you look at this, you know, you look at this deal here. So this would be, we had the choice called right here, okay, the outside choice. So again, the ball is on the right middle, you know, or the far hash. So he's going to be lined up just probably on to the bottom of the numbers. And this mechanical graph sheet, every square is actually a square yard. Again, he's going to push to 10, and he's going to make his decision. He's either gone, or he can bend this thing in, or he's back down the stem, or he can actually bend it out. All right, so he's got a couple different options. Now, what we tell the occupy route, all right, is if there is a safety on the hash, all right. So if we get, you know, we get this kind of scenario here where we've got a safety on the hash, we're going to snap it off across his face right here, all right? And he's also got the option, as he does that, if there's a void, he can sit right there as a potential outlet to the quarterback, all right? If there's one high safety in the middle of the field, and this goes against everything about getting open, but again, we're not telling him he's not a primary guy. We're running him right at that free safety on a post. All right, so we're just really trying to occupy these safeties so that we really are trying to turn this into a one-on-one deal. And the only other guy we really have to worry about, I'm going to talk about, is the nickel or outside linebacker, whatever you want to call that guy right there. We call him an area outside defender. That's our concern. Okay, so we want to turn this into almost like the old NBA Michael Jordan, clear the floor and, you know, let somebody go to work. That's really what we're trying to do. The backside of these hangout routes. Now, this is our answer between this outside choice and the slot choice that I'll just kind of mention briefly. It is our answer to pushing the ball vertically down the field. And what we used to do, and what every team in the country probably does, most of them, you know, you run 4 verticals. So, you know, we ran the old air raid, you know, Coach Mummy 6 call with, you know, all the different options, and, you know, we could break it out, and, you know, we could sit in, and, you know, on this side, and we ran it all different ways. You know, we ran it, you know, the old kind of run and shoot way, you know, Coach Jenkins way, you know, his outside call, or we ran it the air raid way where we read it, you know, left to right. Okay, but this is, I'm talking high school football now. All right, what ends up happening, if this is my best guy right here, all right, this guy over here, he might be just, you know, kind of, you know, average, all right? But this guy might be really good, and this guy might be really good. So if I've got these 2 guys that are really good, those are the guys I want to try to get the ball to. What inevitably happens if you're going to full field read this is there's going to be times on 3rd and 10 where that ball's getting thrown into on a bender to a sophomore who really probably isn't ready for varsity football. So with this choice deal, it really allows you to almost force the ball to your best kids. And remember, I said you can move these guys all around, and we're a big shift team, and we bunch in here and scatter out, and, you know, we've got different ways to try to get our best kids, you know, on your worst kid. But that's kind of just the idea of the called choice concepts versus, you know, the pure full field read vertical concepts. Now, if we're into trips, so again, here, you know, we have trips deal, and this is the guy who's called on the choice. It's obviously the same rules as we work our way in, and we have the hangout on the backside. You know, we'll do it away from the strength. This is really good against, you know, teams that will rotate to the strength. All right, you want to come backside with it. We'll check this a lot on the backside. All right, away from particularly one high safety structures. You know, no safety on the hash, and this is kind of what I got into earlier about recognizing that there is no immediate threat of a safety on or outside the hash to the call side. We do it out of empty. I'll certainly show you, some clips of it out of empty. We'll do it out of our two-back stuff, our deuce stuff, same deal. We'll do it out of stack. We can also switch this. Now, when we do it out of stack, the point man is the guy running the occupy. The slot actually is now on the choice. We can also just have this as a base alignment and switch it and run the same thing. Okay, so we've done that. We've done that both ways. All right. An important thing. So we talked kind of about the shell of the coverage, the safety in the corner. The other really key element you've got to look at, and your quarterback's got to identify immediately, is what we call the area outside defender. The area outside defender to us is the closest defender to the line of scrimmage from the sideline to the call side. So if the choice was to the left, it would be the guy who was closest to the line of scrimmage, all right, from that sideline. So if the corner's rolled up in a hard cover two look, he would be the area outside defender to us. If he's off with depth pre-snap, it would go inside to the nickel, the strong safety, whatever you want to call it, outside linebacker. He's going to do one of two things, in our opinion. He's either going to spot drop or he's going to try to wall that play off, all right? He's going to try to wall this vertical off. So, we're looking for basically two different reactions here, all right? And you'll see them both on the clips I'm going to show you. So, as this guy pushes vertical, and a key coaching point for this guy, we want to go attack his outside shoulder. So we absolutely want to try to outside release him. Now, if he ends up spot dropping and just running out of there, and you'll see this on film, because teams will do this to try to, try to steal this. They'll try to bait you. They'll have the corner fall off, all right, and they'll try to bait you by having this guy really spot drop, and they'll try to get under this if you try to throw something quick. So you've got to really be alert for what this guy's doing. Is he collisioning or walling off? Great. If he does that, we're going to throw that all day long. If he's getting immediate depth, and trying to climb to 8 to 10 yards, really old school cover three, spot drop, where they're flying out of there, no regard for what that inside receiver's doing. You have to be aware of that, and that's where this stem will adjust. He really flies out of there. Well, we'll bend this thing in, or we'll come down the stem outside. You'll see some pretty good examples of all of that deal on our on the cut-ups here. But that is something we have to be concerned with, is that area outside defender. The other thing we have to be concerned with is they will start to overplay it. They'll start to try to really cheat that safety off the hash, particularly into the boundary. When they do that, we'll run our slot choice play that I'll show you just briefly. And obviously, if they're playing with a light box too high across the board, we have a numbers advantage. We're going to run the football. And as I talked about, to the single side choice, if they overplay the strength of the formation, they overplay the trips, they overplay the three-man side and empty, or the four-man side, if we're 4-by-1, we'll run the single side. One coverage you have to be a little bit concerned with this look, and we typically only see this in our two-back stuff against open field coverage teams, so two high coverage teams. We call this Clio, and all it is it's going to look pre-snap like it's an off quarters type of look, and then this corner is going to squat. He's going to play over, and this isn't even a super great diagram, so let me give you a little better. What they'll try to do is, he'll try to squat on this and try to steal this, and he'll play over the top. He'll play basically thirds, and he'll be a third there, and they'll shoot a linebacker, out underneath here, and the strong safety will basically just wall off there. So that's something you have to be concerned with. You'll see some clips of it there. We do a pretty good job of throttling in that hole and hitting that deal there. You'll see a couple of those, but that is one coverage that, a little more advanced teams that you see will do that. As I talked about, we're an extreme up-tempo team. The best thing about doing that, guys, at the high school level, in my opinion, is that you force the defense to become a no-huddle defense. They have to have auto checks. They can't do a lot of different things coverage-wise, particularly if you're motioning and shifting like we do. The other thing you'll see is they'll just really cheat that safety over and almost try to double that vertical shot. If they do that, that's when you have to go to the slot choice portion of it. Now, I'm not going to have time in this, in this setting to really get into the slot choice. That's another hour clinic in and of itself, but this is the other progression of it. So all these are live, basically, depending on what we have in terms of the safety and his reaction, where he's at in regards to the hash after we clear the under coverage. All right. And we put him on an automatic locked stop route, or we've done other things with him. We've broke him out here and done some different things. But that's a whole nother play in and of itself. There it would be out of trips. That's how the deal would look out of trips. If we get to the end, we might be able to show a couple of clips of it. But I won't be able to get into all of the teaching progression of that, in this clinic here. Now, probably the most important thing with this route, guys, is how you drill it. So, right now, obviously, we're not with our kids, unfortunately. Everybody wishes we were. But, it's cold here in Western Pennsylvania in the winter. How we drill it, we get in the gym, and with no football, we run the route. So we pair up. I'm going to show you this daily drill that we do, where we pair up, and basically we have a defender giving a look, and we react off of that look accordingly. And that's how you get good at this. And daily on the field, we drill this for 10 to 15 minutes each and every day on this play alone. As I told you, this is an expensive play for us. This is not a play. If you think you're going to install this play and you're going to run this during Skelly and you're going to be good and you're going to be able to do this, I very much so disagree. You have to spend significant time drilling this. And I'll just say this about how we practice, just to kind of not go off on a tangent, but just kind of talk about this. I'm blessed to have great assistant coaches. They do a great job drilling our guys. Our wide receiver coach does a really good job drilling our receivers each and every day. And what we do, is everybody thinks if you're a tempo team or no huddle team, that all our time is spent in team and, all this kind of stuff. And it's not. We may spend 10 or 15 minutes a day in team. The rest of our practice time is individuals and group work. Like we're talking about this drill, this, choice route drill. That is how we develop high school athletes. We're not at the college level. We are, I'm a high school football coach. So our job is to have to develop young men and develop athletes. And we have to do that through fundamental work and drill work. So we spend a lot of time, on doing that, where maybe some tempo teams might not, follow kind of that same structure. So just to give you an idea, this is just a little segment of a camp practice. All right. That period 2 is our mesh drill. That's run game stuff with shoots, and we go over some of our shifts and things like that. But then you can see we have a 25-minute individual period. The last 5 of it's a little screen drill segment. But then you'll see right there, 15 minutes of choice routes against the defense. All right? That means one-on-one, this drill I'm going to show you, high reps. We're working those 2 plays. But we're doing that every single day. Like we put as much emphasis on that as we do our inside run period, or whatever the period may be. We are putting significant time, into these choice routes and making sure that we have those grooved in. I want to show you one of our pre-practice drills that we do that I think is good for anybody that throws the football or you want to develop wide receivers. And, I learned this from my man, John Jenkins, net drills. So if your field has soccer goals on the field, you'll use those. When I show you my practice field, we practice on the top of our hill, right beside a cemetery by our high school. We don't have soccer nets up there. So I had to go and buy these softball nets, and we use them for that. And you say, well, what's the net for? Well, we're going to work rapid fire catching drills for our receivers in various manners, and you want to have something there that if the ball is dropped, you're not going and chasing the football. They just hit the net, and they stay right there, and then you gather them all up. That's another thing we do in our offense. We spend a lot of our our budget money for our football budget at the school on footballs. I buy a lot of footballs. We always have 2 really big bags of footballs available to us at all times because I think it's important. But we do this drill every day in pre-practice. So we come out before we get started, and you can see, don't have your quarterback throw these. My receiver coach is only about 8 yards away from these guys, and he's just giving them various difficult catches that they're going to have to make. And this is, again, we're just getting grooved in. Practice hasn't even started. This is pre-practice, all right? So we're just getting various different types of catches. Again, don't have your quarterbacks throw this. They'll throw their arm out because you're going to throw, 80 balls or something during this period. Don't use a jugs machine or anything like that. It takes too much time. Just have a coach. We do different things, a little karaoke type thing, and we're giving different balls, and we're really working, watching the ball in, noosing it, that whole deal. I will say this. Guys say, well, how do receivers get better catching the football? They have to catch footballs. So you have to put your guys in position to catch as many balls as they can catch to improve their ability to be hands catchers and not to let the ball get into their body. Because on a lot of these routes, these downfield routes, if the ball gets into their body, they're going to be in trouble. They've got to be really good hands catchers. The next drill I'm going to show you is our choice drill that we do each and every day at practice. So this is, again, the everyday drill. I said it's expensive. The unique thing about what you're going to see here, I was the offensive coordinator of the Team USA Under-18 national team this year, and we had 6 practices. And, I put this play in and several of the other concepts in, and we drilled it the same way. So I filmed some of the, practice stuff, of these guys, and, just to share it with you, because this is the first time of these guys doing it. And it was in a very limited time frame. So what you're going to see is the ball coming out late from the quarterback in these drills. It'll look much the same when you first start to install it. But I want you to see this, and then I want you to see the film of when I show you our cut-ups from this last year, the difference once you really get that timing and really get it grooved in. So we basically pair up. And here's the other part of this drill. Guys will say, well, is this a true one-on-one period? Or are the receivers, contesting the catches? No, they're not. They're giving a look. And they're going to give various different techniques from a defensive perspective. And we drill our guys and work our guys on attacking the blind spot, of his leverage, of his technique, depending on where that break's going to be at that 10-yard point. So that's the key coaching points for what we're really trying to accomplish there. So once the break is made, we don't want the defender going to try to make a play on the ball. So we don't want guys' feet to get tangled up and a guy to twist an ankle, or they both go jumping up for the ball. Because most of these guys some of these guys aren't DBs. They just might be receivers sitting in there as DBs, or they might be linebackers or whatever it is. But we just have them all pair up, so we get maximum amount of reps. Now there, with our guys, that ball would already be out, so that decision's made. He pushes that thing, that ball would already be on its way out. So you can see how it's kind of late there. The other thing we tell our guys is we want to be we want body shots. All right, we want to be hands catchers, but as a quarterback perspective, if we get the stop route option, we want to put it on their body. Don't put it up high where if it does hit off their hands, it's going to get picked by the DB. We want it on their frame. We want it on their body as much as possible. But you can kind of see here. So, he goes through the ball's already been out, but you watch the next guy's jumping up, ready to go, all right, on defense, and we're ready to roll right into the next rep. Again, really, really high reps. The other little secret I'll tell you, if you're a tempo guy, if you want to be a no-huddle team, when you're in group periods or when you're in team periods, always go off of 4 or 8 play racks. Don't let your guys substitute out every single rep. This is one of the rare times where our guys get to kind of run a play and sub out just because we have another group getting ready to jump up there and go. Because that's all going to be part of the conditioning deal. Anytime we get a guy that opens up like that, whether he puts his butt to the sideline or he opens, we're going to stop there. I mean, our guys almost, 100% know that that's the look that we're going to end up getting. But this is all reps. It's no different than, your golf game or if you bowl or whatever it is, see, that ball should already be out. Like the minute he hits, like it should already be out. Like our guys, when you see our cut-ups, that ball's already on its way, out there. But, I just wanted to show this part to you so you can kind of see how we drill it, because it is a very important part, of installing this kind of concept. All right, now this is for the slot stuff, so this doesn't really apply, but you can kind of just get a feel for, how we give different reads. And we'll typically, if this was at our place, we'd have an under coverage guy there. We'd have that area outside defender there, and we're working different break points. And that's a good example there, the net drill, having to catch the ball away from your body. But, these are some different things that we do, kind of drill into different choices. And again, it's every day. We are going to do this every single day, with our guys. It's from the summer right on through. So the amount of reps that they get at this kind of stuff is really amazing. You'll be surprised how really good, these guys get at making these various breaks. So I hope so far that has been good in terms of giving you kind of a foundation of it. Now let's get into, some of these cut-ups, of us actually running it. Here you go. This is out of trips. All right, we're going to the single side here. All right, and they're over-rotated, so we probably check this. They've basically got 4 over 3 here, and they got one-on-one backside. So we checked it over there. I mean, that's easy. That's like killing for us. But you can see those hangout routes. Those guys are, they're not really doing much over there. Just kind of coming off the ball. And, I mean, you don't have to like it. I mean, like I said, you don't have to do that. You can do whatever you want there. I mean, there are times we tag quick game. We may have a quick game tag to the trip side here. It's hard to tell if that was a quick game or that was we had them on a hangout. But, it's the same concept. Again, we're not worried about that area outside guy. Buzzes out there, but he buzzes shallow. That doesn't concern us on the outside choice. What does concern us is when that guy starts to get a lot of depth. When he really starts spot dropping out there, we get concerned. Here's empty. All right, here's empty. Now, the thing you'll see here about the bottom of the screen where we're throwing this, I mean, one, again, look at his split. That's important. All right. The split, as I said, is important. Again, you see a lot of these are going to be into the boundary, but that ball's already out. Like that ball's on its way out, and our guy hasn't turned. But just by the pre-snap on the coverage in the initial reaction where that guy starts to carry, this guy's carrying. He knows he's off. So our quarterback's here and recognizes that he's off. So his eyes are now right here, okay? And he sees that he's starting to get some depth. He knows that we got a real good shot based on where we're at to throw that stop route. And you'll see multiple formations. Like I said, we were 3-by-1. We were empty. Here's one where we get the vertical option. 3-by-1, and those again, guys, those are those hangouts, so you can check them out here. It's not, but those 4 guys over that trip, us running little hangouts there have no bearing on that choice route. Now, the other thing we teach our kids at the place that I'm at, we're not blessed with a ton of speed of guys that are just gonna run by people. So when we do run by them, we work stacking the route. You can see our guy do that, and that brings him in a little bit on the throw, for the quarterback. But, we do expect our guys to try to stack the defender once they get vertical, because if that guy recovers, then he's going to have to go through him to try to make a play on the football. And that's one of the reasons that we do it, because we figure they may have some catch-up speed in the secondary. They may be able to recover and potentially try to make a play. But, that was trips. So that gives you kind of different looks. We did it away from the trips. There it is to the trips. And it's all just a numbers game. So, the reason we run it into the boundary, the trip side there is quite simple. Here we've got a 3-on-2 basically. Here they're commanding, they're bracketing this one guy over here. So we just simply have the numbers to go ahead and run it over there. There's just grass. It's just a concept of, attacking where the grass is more than anything. Here's a 2-back set. All right, 2-back, same deal. Nice, easy read for the quarterback. And again, these are all the thing I love about this play. These are not 5-yard gains. These are, we're getting the first down, when we complete these. They're 10-yard gains. We averaged about 20, whatever those numbers were at the beginning of the deal. I think we were around 20 yards a game. But some guys don't like the hangout deal. You don't have to like it. But again, like I said, we probably ran this guy deep on the next play at the bottom of the screen. So, it gets him a little break. We're going really, really fast. All right. You're going to see a team spot drop in there. There you go. All right. So there's a good example. He gets out under this. All right. And this is designed. All right. They're trying to force that stop. Look how far number 3 is bailing out. All right, they know what we're trying to do. Now, that kid tries to get under. Now, if he doesn't adjust his stem and these two aren't on the same page, this ball probably gets picked. Like if we only ran this play during Skelly or we didn't rep it for just 10 or 15 minutes a day just on this play in a one-on-one situation, that's probably going to get picked. But here he knows to put the ball outside because that's where our receiver is going to break. All right. So it's all about adjusting the route to get open. And, our guys did a great job there. And, I'm blessed at Burl High School. We have smart kids. We have hard-working kids. We have tough kids. All right. Now we're not blessed with a ton of speed or things like that. We don't send a bunch of Division I kids, out of there each and every year, but they're coached up. They'll listen. They'll execute. Now here we climb him. All right. He's up now. It's important. This is what I talked about earlier, where you want to be careful that you don't just say to yourself, well, he's up, so I'm going to take off. Well, he may bail out of there, all right? So we don't actually decide until we get to 10. But the coaching point is, as I said about stacking it, if we climb him and get on top of him, we're going to go. All right, so if we can climb him and stack him, we're obviously running by him, and that's really what you see here. All right, we run by this kid, we stack him. You can see the kid even recovers at the last minute. So if we don't stack him here, this kid probably has a chance to make a play on this vertical shot. But because we now stack him and force that kid to have to lean into him, we have a chance to catch a ball for a big touchdown. So to us, it's those little details. Now, look, if you got kids that can just run by somebody, I've had those kind of kids before, then shoot, just go run by him. All right? But if you've got really guys that more have to be technicians with how they get open, you've got to teach them those ways to be able to do that. Here's a stacked look. All right, and again, look at the split like I talked about. We're very tight to the sideline here. We're going to break in right there, and we're going to run the choice with this guy, but it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, we can bring it there, and we can run the choice there. It really, that part of it, there's a little bit of, leeway there. But again, that's, it's a tough play for guys to stop, and it brings me back to the point of I said, no matter what kind of offense you run, you don't have to be a run and shoot team or air raid team or a spread team, whatever that even means anymore. To run this kind of stuff, you as long as you're willing to put the time in to drilling this play, you can put it in your offense. All right, I mean you absolutely can. Again, most of these throws, as you can see, are coming off the hash. I mean, you'll see some from the field, but, majority of these throws are going into the boundary. So you don't have to have a big time arm. Now, we have an excellent quarterback here. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, our kid is a good football player to me. He's got, some Division I ability. Just a good quarterback, big time arm. He can spin it, but we've had other kids run this play that didn't have the same type of, arm talent. So you can run this with different kids. Here we go again. We're on the back side, single side. All right. Just basically falls down, and it's a first down. There's another two-back look. Again, spacing is so important. Like, our route spacing there with these guys is just so critical. And that's why it just has to be constantly drilled, with the kids. In every practice. There's a little 2x2. Same deal. So you've seen a variety, of different formations here. We're now in a 2x2. Same deal. There's another example of our guys start to work down outside, away from that guy, kind of spot dropping. He recognizes it, all right? Our guy works his route back down to the outside on the stem. Those are just the little details, all right, that you have to stress with your kids. There's an inside break. So there's an example of the inside stem. That guy crosses his face. He works into that void there, into the inside, bends that thing inside. Again, all reps. It's not complicated. It's all repetition. All right, all just till it's like the back of your hand. There's another stacked look. All right, again, the timing, how that ball's coming out. Watch it to point the ball's out. He hasn't even broke yet. Ball's out. It's just a really clean read for your quarterback. In contrast to the way that the 6 call works, or the true full field, 4 vertical concept works, where you're going to ask your kid to progress through. I think what you have when you do that, I think, particularly high school kids, I think they may get off of progressions too early. Or, as I said, it's happened to me many times in the past, the ball has a funny way of finding itself to the open guy that you don't want to have the ball in that kind of situation. So, again, it's just a way to really try to get your best kids the ball as much as you can. There we go, single side. This was early in the year, so this ball's late coming out. Like, that should already be out. This is the first game of the year. Like, that ball should already be out because we've got that guy climbed. We could touch him. All right. That should have been a little easier than that. See what else we've got here. I know we're starting to get a little tight on time. Okay, this one's important. I'm glad this one's here. All right. This is a long yardage situation. This is, 3rd and probably 20-some. So if you call the outside choice vertical and you're in that kind of situation, what's probably going to happen, right, is this guy's going to be playing way off and your kid's going to stop and you're going to be about 10 yards short of that first down, and you may not want that. So we have a tag that locks this route. And here's what it means. If he gets a lock call on the choice, he's going to run the same vertical. Now, he does not have the option to sit it down. However, if as he gets to the 10 to 15-yard point, he has not beaten this guy, he starts to think back shoulder. All right, and you're going to see that here. So we motion across. And we knew they were bracketing that kid, so we put him in the slot, and we actually ended up with a single, so there. See how he starts peeking inside? Because he knows it's going to be hard. That kid was starting to close the sideline off to him. All right? So him and the quarterback are on the same page now, and this is all reps. because watch the ball come out. Watch when this football comes out from our quarterback. This is all high reps, all practice stuff. This has been done many a times on the practice field, and that's a big pickup right there. Big time pickup, off of this little back shoulder. But again, the reason it happens is they're on the same page. Ball's out. He knows right now, our quarterback knows he's not going to beat him. All right, he can't touch him. He knew it too because he peeked back. The minute he peeked back, he started this thing out. All right, that's the whole critical element, to that throw. I'll show you a couple more. Here's something you don't want to do. All right, one thing you don't want to do. We said it's speed to 10 yards, but it's either stop or run by him. We still throw this for a touchdown, but we don't want our receiver here to give a little stutter or a stick at the top of the route because that gives the quarterback a false read. That gives the quarterback the idea that he's going to stop. So you see how he kind of gives a little stick move there, all right, and that kind of messes our quarterback up a little bit, and that ball's a little bit late, but it's still a heck of a throw, to fit that thing in there. Here's the Cleo coverage. Now, I talked about the Cleo. Here's the corner roll, all right, and they're playing the 3 over the top. Like you can see how far that safety, off the hash is really, they're trying to bait us, to throw that vertical. So we just work that and throttle into the hole. But again, it's something that you really have to practice, and spend a lot of time on. But, I think that's probably for now. We're probably close on time, I'm assuming. Are we pretty close on time, Doug, or do I have more time?
We're good. We're good when you are, Shawn.
What I'll do is let me just show the slot, a couple plays of the slot choice. Just to, I didn't really get into it, but let me show a couple just little clips. This first one's not great, because our guy really has a bad break on it, but we're going to occupy here, like I talked about. We're going to choice here, and we're going to run a little stop out here. And this guy really should have just climbed and bent it in, but he kind of breaks it a little, should have, and he takes a shot, still catches it for a touchdown. But part of it was the fact that we checked it late, based off this was playing that Cleo coverage. You can see for whatever reason here, they're actually Cleoing this single side, all right? So once we saw them do that and rotate over, we checked to this. But like he should just snap this here into this where this big grab at, but he ends up taking a shot from the corner over, but still a touchdown. One where there is no safety, the safety spins to the middle. It takes it straight up outside, 2 yards outside the hash, just, straight hash option there, seam option. Doesn't bend it or do anything with it. Just take it straight up. Good throw. Kind of play there. We're going to slot choice this here. You see him outside release, work in. All right. That's kind of the option we're looking for there. Just so you can see how these kind of, we kind of pair these things together, with what we're trying to do. Another option. We'll look at one or two more, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Doug. All right. Let's see. Here's one. The safety's, safety's actually on the near hash, so it just turns into a slot fade type of concept. But again, hope it was helpful for you guys. I mean, are there questions or anything in there, Doug?
Yep. I got a couple questions. I'll throw at you, Shawn.
Okay.
So you touched on this a little bit, but Curtis Bailey asked, if they play a 3 cloud look to the choice side, what's your answer?
Yeah, so it would either be we're going to go away from it, like you saw us work something to the single side, or we work just adjusting the route where you saw how we kind of just throttled on the sideline there and put the ball into the hole. We'll do either of those two really. That's the only thing that really would give that play. If they have that dialed up, and it will give you a little bit of problems, particularly if you're in a 2-by-1 two-back set. Against the spread stuff, they kind of lighten in the box too if they want to do that kind of stuff. So we have other things that we can do to attack space. If we're seeing that to a 3-man side.
Gotcha. What do you tell quarterbacks footwork wise on your outside choice?
Depends on our drop. Like I said, whether we're taking our straight drop or we're taking our angle drop, our controlled drop, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we're going to get 3 steps in the ground basically. We're one big, 2 little. We kind of say, I'm not a guy. We don't overcoach the feet a ton. We want the feet to be alive. We want them to have really good mechanics in terms of getting that football out. I don't want guys worrying about, I took a 6-inch step and I was supposed to take a 12-inch step. You know what I mean?
Really?
For us, it's more the rhythm of the drop.
So there's an issue with the signal coming in.
Who's here?
Particularly when we're in our
That's why that orange light is blinking like that. Because he went on, he looked at our account and said,
Someone's got their mic
things too, and it still isn't coming up. And
someone mute their mic, someone's got their mic
but
on.
there's no internet, there's no with our signal.
So we're out all night tonight. What are we gonna do?
Watch DVDs.
Oh, somebody's power went out or something.
You make sure your mic is muted. Oh, here it is. I got it. And then just the last one. I know you touched on this a little bit. But Jay Farazi asks, should the choice route runner work his way back to the quarterback if he's waiting for the ball?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if he does not get the football, he will keep working back to him. And I didn't have any cuts of it on here, but we had a couple of scramble situations that were like that. And I'll mention this. So if it turns into a scramble situation, those guys that are on hangout routes and stuff like that, they now are live. All right, those hangout guys are live. And the other thing we do with the hangouts is we'll pump and go those hangout guys too. So if someone falls asleep on, they're loafing off the ball, we'll send those guys up the field as well. But to answer the question the coach had specifically, yes, he'll continue to work back towards the line of scrimmage.
And he's just working to find an opening, correct? It's not
absolutely, absolutely.
So
the expectation is, when he gets to the 10-yard, to the break point, and he decides and he puts the brakes on to stop that thing down, if the lane is clear for the quarterback, because he's looking at that area outside defender, he's going to shoot that thing right now. That ball is already coming. So literally, as he stops, he's going to get a body shot with the football. The football should be on his frame right now. If that doesn't occur, okay, it's because that area outside defender is starting to either really spot drop to either take away the inside or has crossed the face and he has to work back in. So he just kind of works off of that outside linebacker or whatever you want to call him, area outside defender, strong safety, nickel. Everybody has different terminology. That guy who's responsible for that curl to flat, type of area.
Gotcha. And quarterback footwork. Just last question here from Mark. You want the same footwork from your quarterback, whether he's going to the right or to the left, or do things change a little bit for you?
Yeah, I mean, what we do when we're in our angle drop to the left, we kind of back out. So if it's a right-handed quarterback, he's going to take his left foot and drop that on an angle first, and we kind of back out so that we keep his we don't, we used to do it 2 different ways. We used to have him, when we were under center running the angle drop stuff, we'd have to really work, getting his hips flipped, and we don't want to do that. We used to do that in a gun as well, where we'd actually drop and then him flip his hips. Here if we're doing that angle type of drop, we almost back out of it. All right, we almost back out so that we've got what we call our 4 eyes, the eyes in our head, the hip and the shoulder, all pointing towards the target that we're trying to throw at, rather than have to worry about getting his hips flipped.
Yep, I got you. That makes sense. Well, appreciate it, Coach. We'll have video of this clinic posted up website shortly, probably within the hour. Thank you, coaches, for tuning in. There's now a tab at the top of the Football Scoop page where you can find all the recorded clinics. So that wraps up what we had today. We'll be back tomorrow with a couple more coaches. I'll release a preview here later tonight of the coaches we have lined up for tomorrow. And then, Coach, I've got contact information. Everybody see that? For Shawn, his Twitter info. I know he had the book, and I'll actually have a link to buy the book in the article that we push up here in a little bit. So thanks a lot, Shawn. Thanks a lot, coaches, for coming on board. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yep.